fish is not sick, the water is dirty. I've seen parents destroy programs because of their, and I call it fantastic lies about their kid. And our whole team just erodes, unfortunately, because of some parent who's heated and them themselves lack the social emotional skills.
Tex McQuilkin is a visionary in sports leadership and the founder of Captains and Coaches, with over 15 years of experience bridging the gap between physical excellence and leadership mastery. From elite collegiate competitors to special operations forces, his methodology has revolutionized performance development across 6 continents and 15 countries. Armed with a master's in health behavior change, he combines cutting-edge science with battle-tested principles to transform athletes into the world's most influential leaders.
When you realize that your approach, however well-intentioned, caused that harm, what did that do to your confidence and then sense of responsibility as a coach?
All I knew was play your sport, lift weights, and run as fast as you can. I'm grinding. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm doing it with 100 miles an hour intensity.
You can't outgoal an unsuccessful mindset.
And I call these culture killers. We're talking envy, resentment, all of our natural human tendencies. If you start to listen to them, that's when we move away from being what a true captain is.
The transactional attitude misses the point of that in their process. If you gave them some love, if you made them feel valued, important, you have no idea how you could have opened up a whole nother portal of energy.
Coaches are the last line. We are the last line of defense that actually gives a crap about them before it becomes costly as they enter into their family lives. Who are we building? Not what are we building?
What's the thing that you learned about yourself through this whole process that it's like, when it comes to my character and identity, I didn't learn this from anything other than experience?
Yeah, I will say this.
Welcome back to the Evolving Athletes podcast, where we explore the mindset shifts, identity pivots, and real-life transformation that define an athlete's evolution and journey. Today's guest is someone who embodies what this show is all about, Tex McQuilkin. Tex grew up in the intense sports culture of Katy, Texas, where football was life and weightlifting started in 6th grade. He was gritty, hard-nosed, and all in as an athlete, a lacrosse captain, no more for knockouts than goals, who earned the nickname Tex while carving his identity far from home. But what makes this episode so powerful isn't just his early intensity, it's what happened when that just work harder mindset broke down. After a pivotal coaching mistake that left a teammate injured, Tex was forced to confront a painful truth. Effort isn't enough, and good intentions aren't a substitute for wisdom. That moment cracked his identity, and it opened the door to everything that's followed, from flying across the country with his last dollars to seek mentorship, to undergoing a grueling coaching apprenticeship, to building systems that now teach coaches and young athletes all around the world. So today, he's the founder of Captains and Coaches, a longtime leader at Power Athlete, and a coach educator who blends physical performance with deep character development. We're going to dive into the phases of his evolution, from intensity and failure to humility, identity, and the way he now teaches others to lead from the inside out. Tex, been looking forward to this one. Welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me. I'm glad we got the opportunity to connect through Cav and the Mastermind, and then sitting down, having you on Captains and Coaches podcast, and then just all the similar nuggets like Dr. Yeager's research, where it's like, man, I deep dove that too. So it's amazing to just see the connections that we have, and I look forward to growing a professional relationship with you. And this is just one of those stepping stones to deepen that, man. So I appreciate all your work through the lens of hockey. We're the 2 hair guys. I think the only 2 guys with hair in the mastermind. So yeah, I love hockey for the hair, and I love lacrosse for the hair. It's almost like, what came first? Did we have it because we played the sport, or did we find the sport because we had it? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Amen. I was going to say we're like the Flow Bros in Cavs crew.
Yeah, I'll take it. Let's go.
We'll tell them, yeah, we got to get something going with that, man. We got to get that moving. Well, no, and I appreciate you. And you're right. It was cool, like, going on your pod and being able to nerd out on some of the stuff that's important. And like we said, we could talk about this stuff for hours. And that's what excites me about today is, diving into your journey, right? Specifically, because it's such a unique, and again, the similar parallels, man. Like, when you talk about, we could dive right into of you as a kid.
Yep.
I love how your story, right, of how you were that intense kid. Work hard, get after it, right? I'm going to go super hard. And at the time, even whatever it was, culturally or as we grew up, there wasn't a lot of this idea of being mindful in your process as an athlete and thinking about and being thoughtful and things of that nature. That's not the era we grew up in. But take us back to that time of when you were a kid, right? And like, let's start off with like how, as a kid, right, you were described as that intense physical, bit of an enforcer on the field, right? With that, talk about how that mindset, with what you can recall, served you as a young athlete, but then how did it challenge you in life, off the field, at school, and family, at home? Like, what were some of those things of like how you recognize when you look back of like, yeah, out in the field, it was like this, but from real world, here's some of the stuff I dealt with as a kid.
Y- Yeah, I'll start with this. Is quiet, introverted, and then there's an amazing book by Susan Cain called Quiet, and that recently read within the last 4 years. It just completely changed my perspective and found value in those negative experiences growing up. So the quiet kid, I got 5 sisters. There's no room to speak. And then within the social dynamics of school, like just weird, interesting growing up. The hospital was my babysitter. I'd have to walk from school to the hospital, wait for mom to get off shift, and then you go home, and then the chaos is waiting for you at home. So then within that gap of school and hospital, I mean, I was playing football, so sports provided me that opportunity to not go sit in a waiting room, which is a terrible babysitter. And then there's the weight room. Football ended. Well, we were introduced to weightlifting in 6th grade as part of just fitness class, PE. Everybody had to do PE. Football becomes a school sport at 7th and 8th grade within Texas. So then I started to fill those gaps with the weight room. And I joke, I'm a 5'8" genetic trash can, Katy, Texas. Like, weight room provided me the opportunity to actually have control through the chaos of home life. And
Mm.
that became an outlet. I mean, I was still a B teamer for life, JV player for life. So it wasn't translating to football and sport, but I was getting stronger. It was translating to my body and my confidence. So it was the controllable and what I could not control. So contributed, started on those minor teams from, middle school to high school, was never the dude, but I was always leading the pack within the sprints or the more difficult endurance runs. I wasn't the fastest, certainly was not the strongest. I had amazing teammates that went on to go play University of Texas and into the NFL. Blessed with, and they have great attitudes, great men, great teammates. But what could I control? Was my attitude and my effort. And I trusted my coaches. What the challenge I ran into is these mentors that I would lean into because I didn't have it at home. They were transactional gentlemen. They were nice guys, but at the same time, they made decisions to maintain their jobs, and I get it. We had 2 high schools growing up. We had Katy, which wins the state championship every year, and then where I went to school was Katy Taylor. We won the academic decathlon state championship. That is the dichotomy of towns where dudes would get P.O. box addresses so they could play for the Katy Tigers and within the rules of the district and compete there. Completely understood that. They're still a perennial powerhouse. So now our football coaches, they made a decision for my junior class's performance. They took the sophomores, one of those dudes went on to play in the NFL. They took that class and put them on varsity as sophomores, making the decision and communicating to the boosters that we're going to lose for the next 2 years with this class, but we're going to compete that senior year. What they didn't see coming was Andy Dalton for Katy Tigers, who torched us for 60, and he went on to go play in the NFL and TCU. So they made a big swing and a bet for their careers, their jobs. It didn't work out, and it burned my class. We felt we were leaders. We felt we were winners. We did everything that we were asked to do and had the right attitude about it, and then we still could not find the field. So we took our performance into our own hands, and we started a lacrosse team. We were the 8th team in Houston at the time. And I will say this, it's 24 years later, that lacrosse program is still going strong in Katy. So, I mean, thousands of kids have been through in that program by a bunch of, a group of 15 rambunctious dudes that just turned it around on the coaches. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. And then we found a very transformational coach. He was a dude from Long Island that his nephew played for Katy, and he saw just the disastrous. He only had daughters, so he saw the disastrous effects just socially and emotionally it had on his nephew. While his nephew did go on to get a couple state championships, dude was broken wrist, beat up, and it affected him negatively that our coach could see it. So then he wanted to pour into us. This was his opportunity. We were his sons. I still speak to him often, and was with a couple of my buddies from the team recently over Christmas, and we shot him a text, and he's the best at one-liners, freaking Long Island guy. We were commenting on a former teammate, and he's like, yeah, that guy's a few beers short of a six-pack. So like full of these quips and one-liners, and man, we were okay at lacrosse. I mean, we won 8 games that first year, which is a massive accomplishment, and made the playoffs. So we were just a bunch of football players with sticks that would do anything that we were asked to do, and we loved each other. So it was a great unit, great team, and again, in my home, I could be myself with the team, but it was just a quiet at home. So I'll play any sport. I'll do anything to avoid that. So that was that focus growing up. And then that led me to the opportunity to go play college ball on the East Coast and Division III, but thrived in that environment. I found my clique, found my crew within that. We had a great freshman class that stuck it out all 4 years. And I was recruited by a very transactional coach. So he was similar to any high school football coach. He treated you like a piece of garbage. He made sure you knew it because that's how he was going to motivate you. And I had amazing teammates, amazing players. They were phenomenal. We had one dude transfer from Navy, phenomenal. He it was my goal. He was an All-American for 4 years. So we're all conference in the #1 conference within Division III lacrosse, the CAC at the time, which no longer exists. But so our team gelled fast because we hated this guy and we made fun. Like we turned it into fun. Very transactional coach. So a lot of guys played to spite him. They did not quit because they didn't want him to be right, and they really drove and worked hard. I just worked hard because it was the way I am. And growing up, all I knew was play your sport, lift weights, and run as fast as you can. So now going to the East Coast, where a lot of the dudes are coming from private schools, guess what they didn't do? Lift weights or run as fast as they can. So then I just brought what I know to it. And then I had buddies at University of Texas football. So they were just, hey, email me, Mad Dog, Jeff Mad Dog Madden strength and conditioning program. We're talking Vince Young. This is that 05 championship team. I'm doing their training programs as a 5'8" white genetic trash can Division III lacrosse player. So now I'm grinding. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm doing it with 100 miles an hour intensity in 10 cities.
Amazing.
Challenge there. I broke my leg my freshman year. So then I was on the shelf just basically doing bench press and keeping stats for the team, and in a mentally challenged place because I came here to do one thing and I lost it. So that started the understanding of what communication is. How do I lead if I can't make an impact on the field? And I wouldn't have been playing and starting anyway. So I had this opportunity to really understand what connection and being a great teammate really is. And how do you influence a guy that is better at this sport than you will ever be? Well, okay, I can find where he's weak and try to lift him up. So that really started my leadership journey. And then fortunately, that coach, that transactional coach, he left, took another job, did not recruit. He left the team in a horrible place. And this is in the fall, preparing for a spring sport. So the whole administration is scrambling to make a hire, and all the coaches that want a head coaching job, they're already positioned to start their season. So then they would look to a local high school coach who just happened to be an alumni for my university. And I was on that hiring committee, and I was a part of that process. And then we went with him, which is a great call. He's still there 20 years later. So that'll show the impact. And then I was one of his first captains. So we created this bond, this relationship. What do we want this program to be? What went wrong with the previous regime? What do we see working at the highest of the high, the pro levels? And man, we'd spent hours in that office just crafting and blueprinting what success would look like for a program. And I was trusted to help him participate and lead to that journey. So that's a big part of the captains and coaches mission, is that relationship, that bond that we had. It was a transformational, to use that word again,
Yep.
opportunity for me to be trusted and step into a leadership. While he was ultimately making all the calls, it was still my perspective that was valued. So I aim to still apply that and listen to my teams today. And I mean, long journey up to that point. I went on to start 4 years, 3 years as a captain. I used that to leverage an extra year to get into grad school and then become a grad assistant coach. And then imposter syndrome hits. I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but I had to go on the recruiting trail, and it's as nasty as it was then as it is now. And how do I communicate to these players? How do I convince them to come to this school in Washington, D.C., and recruit these kids that have been playing longer than I have? But it came down to, okay, I'm going to find attitude, I'm going to find athletes, and then we are going to will them to develop this skill and build buy-in. How we're going to accomplish that? The weight room. We are going to really aim to unlock that athleticism. And if we get a kid that is skilled, that's not an athlete, well, I'm going to take over that department and put him in the best position to succeed. Lift weights, run as fast as you can, and play your sport. And so my first training session, ever so confident, I finally found my niche, because it certainly wasn't coaching lacrosse. I injured a dude. Senior kicks up into a handstand, and we don't have a weight room. We just got a fitness center. So we needed upper body strength. So I asked him to kick up into a handstand, and this was my former teammate. He was still my pal, but now he was my athlete. Tears his rotator cuff. I take away his last year of lacrosse because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So, I mean, just the weight of the world, the Catholic guilt took over, and I had to find a solution. I had to find it now because I couldn't fix the injury. So then got on the Googles. This is 2009. Found mentors, flew out to California to spend 2 days with them and just crack the bones, suck the marrow out of everything that they had to present to me, and then take it back to my Division III athletes and actually learn how to coach. So would eventually go back and, spend years with one of the gentlemen, and then spent an intense 4 months with the other one to really understand what is athletic development. And then the emotional quotient, the presence, the professionalism that it is to be a coach, owe it all to one of them. So yeah, that's where I am today. And I'm committed to, while I've been at the tip of the spear, had the fortunate opportunity to present at Dam Neck with Navy SEALs, work with professional athletes, travel the world 6 continents to teach and coach. Where I truly feel the opportunity that I have to make an impact and change in the world is that high school level. The dudes that don't have the resources, or the coach is the mentor figure, or they don't have the social emotional toolkit to then go out into college and find success and find who they are. I don't want them to walk into a world that continues to tell them a story about themselves and listen to it. Can we build the confidence? Can we build the tools to arm ourselves to find out exactly who we are, whatever that may be? So you need mentorship for that. Mine came from sport and the head coaches that I had that were transformational. So aim to pull those lessons in, dive into the research, and then see if we can simplify it for a high school bro to listen and then go apply when the world or someone else is trying to tell them how it is.
Love it, man. Love it. Unreal breakdown of all the stages and so much to unpack, man, in that. Brilliant. Start with, so the first thing that came to mind for me was when you started talking about how here's a bunch of kids that decided we've got to go start this lacrosse team. What was the mindset like? And what do you remember about at the time that a bunch of you are like, because you think about what that would feel like to kids today, to have to go make a move like that, to think about that, the conversations that are going on, we're all hanging out. the audacity, the courage to be like,
Yeah.
we're doing this. What was going on? Like, what was the mindset behind that? Like, what were the conversations like? What do you recall about that whole experience and how that shaped a group of young men that were like, we're going to do it ourselves? Because you rarely, if ever, will hear a story like that in today's world. I don't think that it happens anymore.
Dude, I mean, audacity is I feel that's the most appropriate word for it, because we had to find equipment. It wasn't sold at Dick's Sporting Goods. So then it was super weird and eclectic. Like I said, we're the 8th team, so other teams existed. So we would heard about a kid or something through the grapevine in the high school networks, and this kid quit. So then I remember, and again, quiet kid, like I'm afraid to order pizza on my own. I have to call this kid and ask him, "Hey, do you have lacrosse equipment?" So then super nervous to call another 16-year-old for their equipment, and then driving to their house and being like a cash exchange. Like this is, I mean, pre-Craigslist. So paid $100 for a full set of gear from a dude that quit. And yeah, then there was a summer league at the lacrosse. So we found all this out before our JV season football started. So then that summer is where we had that audacity to just be like, screw it, let's go do it. And we did recruit. There's a lot of hilarity within that season. We did recruit the biggest offensive tackle on the football team to play goalie, because in our mind, we're like, he's big, he's going to take up the most space. Well, one practice in, he gets hit by a shot, and he's like, nah, I'm good. We needed then an athletic, just small, brave, freaking crazy guy. I'm sure hockey goalies are the exact same way. There's a few screws loose. I never met a sane goalie that was any good.
Yeah,
So
you got to go for a puck.
found our guy, and then showed up at that men's summer league, and just, hat in hand, being like, hey, we just started a team. And that's where we found the New England guy. So, I mean, the internet existed, but not like it was today. None of us had cell phones. It was all just interesting word of mouth, and we're just going to show up and then rely on the good graces of the sport. And I imagine hockey's the same way. Lacrosse culture is just, somebody wants to play, I'm going to do whatever I can to help them fall in love with the sport, because it did so much for me. So, now we're starting to see greedy hands and money get into the sport, unfortunately. But at that time, it was, hey, lacrosse gifted this to me, I'm going to give it to you. And our coach, he volunteered for years. We didn't pay him anything. Any dues that we had went straight to ref fees. And last funny story about that, our high school, they wanted nothing to do with us, because our football coaches were afraid we were going to get hurt and cost them potential guys on their team. So we just showed up at our middle school field. We call it Eagle Stadium. It's one of those terrible middle school tracks. The field is not taken care of. It's covered in weeds. And we would just show up in our pickup trucks, unleash our goals, and just practice on the field. No insurance, no communication to the middle school. We just willed our way to it. Even on game days, coach would show up a couple hours and he would paint the fields himself. Like, we only had 15 guys. So I learned this years later, but he would shorten the width of the field and the length of the field and just kind of eyeball and walk the lines, because he's like, we only got 15 guys. I don't want to run out of gas. So just little things like that. But I mean, that, I guess, how I have lived my life is like, hey, we want to go do it. What's going to stop us? We are the only people that's going to stop us. Let's go do it. So
how did that shape you moving forward? Of like, when you look back, you're like, this was a big lesson I learned from that, man. Like, that gave me the confidence. Like you said, you're a quiet kid, but you're doing this stuff, and it's like, I'm going to go for it. What did you learn from that experience of, like, when you look back now, it's like, wow, this is how it shaped me moving forward?
I mean, one of my core values is connection, and I got bullet points underneath that, and one of it is friendship. Like, we were able to find success because of each other and the connection we had. And then I mean, I still got on my way to maintain connection with all those guys. So it's just through connection and a bunch of guys saying, hey, we can do this, that we were able to do it. And I mean, all of us felt what we were told by an authority figure, all of us felt that's not true. So why are we going to believe that? We're not going to give in. And I will say this, that our little brothers, I didn't have a brother, but my boys' brothers, once the coaches at the high school saw the success of lacrosse, they then held it against the guys. If you play this, you'll not start at point guard. If you play this, you are not our running back. So the politics started to work its way in, and this is still present. And I coach at high school here in Texas still, and I aim to arm the football guys with the social intelligence to navigate those political pushes by the football staff. Some staffs are better than others. Some acknowledge this is a fun sport, and it helps make their athletes better and more improved, more agile. Others just don't acknowledge its existence. So it depends on the school and the program. But just we ran into it back then. But in my good-hearted nature, why would somebody do that? Or I never thought they would, be negative and step into that. So just, audacity, naivety, whatever that word is, like what's gonna stop us? A bunch of idiots having fun. So I aim to maintain that energy of like, who's going to stop us? There's an audience out there for everything. Let's just go out and find our people and keep showing up for them.
Yeah, massive. No, you're 100% right. And what's fascinating to me is what you just mentioned there too, about how you're teaching them the politics, the character part, because this is an argument I've made in the pro realm, is why aren't we teaching the players about the professional side of it, of what's going on, why management makes certain decisions, the contracts, the politics. And every time I brought that up, it gets shunned. Like, no, you don't do that. Like, but that's one of the most powerful things that I found in teaching our players, is that it's a part of it. Like, if you don't understand what you're walking into, then how can you really prepare for the uncertainty, the unknown? Because if you don't know those factors and you're messed up mentally, I don't understand why this player's over me. Well, it's because that person got a contract for 1.5 mil or 2 mil. Like, that's why they're playing. It has nothing to do with performance anymore. It has to do with the business side.
Yeah.
So this political realm of what you're talking about, I think, gets hidden a lot. And you're right, the transactional piece too, the number piece and all that. As much as people talk about connection and the importance of it, we still have a ways to go until it actually gets implemented as something that structurally develops our athletes that are coming up in a way that is very real and consistent across the board of, let's privy this information to you to help you transform. Because you give that information, then you're giving them a choice. But when they don't have the information and they all think something's wrong with them, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the politics that are going on. You didn't do anything wrong. If I had $1 for every freaking time I'm dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old, I'm telling them, you did nothing. Like, you've taken the steps that you needed to. So, talk about that. Work us through of, the college days, right? Clearly you had that natural leadership inside of you, because for you to have that, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it, right? That work ethic's in there. Talk about what that was like at school. So you learned, you went through that scenario, right? And you had this experience, and then you go to college and you have kind of a similar-ish experience with the coach, and you build up and you become a part of this. What was that like for you? Did you kind of feel weird that you're involved in it? Like, did you feel drawn to it spiritually, where you're like, I have to go do this because who else is going to do it? Like, what did that feel like for you as a young man, right? You were at what, 18, 19 at the time or 20 when this was going on?
Yeah, 1920 would have been my sophomore, and like the truly influential with the new head coach. I mean, just a sense that this is the way. And I wouldn't say natural leader. In my mind, I viewed myself as a leader, but I did not have the social emotional toolkit to really step into it. I controlled what I could, which was my attitude and my effort. No question. I was, if we stack ranked the team, and going back to that transactional coach, he stack ranked the team literally. And so roommates were assigned based off of his ranking. So the top recruit he had was my roommate, because I was the bottom of the list. So that was another Long Island guy. and he washed out, but he was told every single day how amazing he was. And then all the sprints, he'd come up with something, oh, my hamstring, my calf, so on and so forth now. So it was always a built-in excuse based off of this kid was going to be the savior for the coach, and it didn't work out. So just an interesting aside. And what I feel is most appropriate, and this is a mindset that reinforced a lot of my success as a college athlete, is that high school coach. He gave me a quote that I'll hold on to this day. And again, he's that Long Island. This is maybe a half joking, backhanded compliment, but he's like, you're going to be remembered for what you're not supposed to do. And there's two sides to that coin. And I referenced my freshman roommate because he was supposed to be the savior. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. How do I remember him? Just like that.
Right.
How was I remembered? I wasn't supposed to be anything. I was supposed to be a warm body for the scout team, for basically coach to run into the ground and destroy. 3-year captain, and then Marymount, we just did 75 years of university. And one way or another, I was nominated to be one of the top 75 people from the school. So that's an honor for me because I wasn't supposed to be anything. I was supposed to be a statistic. Right. And then, dude, you look at the box scores, I'm not on there. But captain, etc. And I joke, I got more career knockouts than goals, as you alluded to in your introduction. So it wasn't natural, but I did see in my 3 years as a captain an evolution from the example. I would set the example as a leader. Then, again, amazing personalities, great teammates. They were very vocal. They graduated. So now I got to step into that junior role of all the personalities, all the guys talking are gone. Okay, now I got to start to speak, but voice cracking, super nervous. What do I say? Freshmen are going out and ignoring team rules because they want to go hang out. So now, how do I hold them accountable and try to yell and shake at them? And you got to learn how to have those tough, crucial conversations. But then finally, my final year, like that embodied like what a leader is, how to lead a team, how to connect and lead the mental and emotional state of an individual, like make those connections with my teammates, and then just feel and lead the energy of the team. So that it took 1, 2, 3 years to really understand what it felt like and have the confidence to execute it. Natural, I don't believe it. I didn't get the opportunities and the tools as a young man to develop that, but then it was just accelerated learning when I did have the chance. And I think that's the key, is maybe not a natural leader, but just the belief inside of me, when I had an opportunity, I'm going to take it and then create a feedback loop, just like in sport. I failed 1,000 times as a leader, but kept coming back, kept showing up, and then, wasn't willing to let somebody else's label define me.
That's it right there. And I think that's what's most unique. And I love that story, man. And I think what's so important, from a listener's standpoint, is the fact that, and when you say natural, I guess I meant more like spiritually pulled towards something that you kept battling. You wanted to figure it out. Something was inside you, like, okay, I don't know what to do yet, but I'm going to keep fighting to do it. And, like for anyone listening that deals with, those types of 17 to 20-year-olds, because you're always kind of battling with the captaincy and how you get them to lead. What were some of those potential like key lessons that you took away that maybe could expedite somebody listening of something they can look for? Like, what was some key takeaways that you were like, this is important to remember as you're going through that process as a young leader?
Yes. So it's not only doing the right thing, you got to have the right attitude. So at the moment that you start to feel I'm not acknowledged, I'm not recognized for always doing the right thing, or in your mind, you think you're always doing the right thing, and then your attitude shifts towards resentment. If a teammate gets called to be captain or be leader or go take the coin toss this game, and it's not you, where does your attitude, where does your mind go? And I call these culture killers. We're talking envy, resentment, all of our natural human tendencies. If you start to listen to them, that's when we move away from being what a true captain is. So you're able to do what's best for the team at that moment in time. And then if you see that stuff within your team as a coach, and then these are simple, and I anchor all of my education in child development. So these are antisocial behaviors would be the label. So if you start to hear or feel or sense, or somebody brings you someone else's antisocial behaviors, you got to get ahead of it and help them understand, one, as a person, or two, as a team, if thinking that way and saying that way, what will happen. And I imagine you've been on teams where it was everything's going okay. It's very calm on the surface, and then it's not. All of a sudden, where did this come from? So aiming, if you see that stuff at very small, you got to get ahead of it. So that would be the guidance, is one, self-leadership. If you're feeling those things, why am I jealous? Why am I upset that this person is getting this playing time, reward, acknowledgement, etc.? Okay, what need do I need? What can I do to then maybe get that acknowledgement? And then I'll tell you, the right behavior is also backing that up. They did deserve that. Or go give them a high five. Hey, way to do this. Or maybe hop on the ship with them. Can I show up early with you to get the extra shots? So you're either joining in on what they're doing correct, praising them alongside coach, so then you get reps at acknowledging others, which is going to help you receive acknowledgement as well. And then, I mean, it's good for the team. That's your teammate. So it's going to, the high tide will rise that ship. And I don't want you to be the anchor that's pulling everybody down because you missed out on one opportunity, or coach acknowledged somebody else. And maybe just, dude, I've led 1,000 huddles, more than that, at the end of practice. There's things that I forget. So if I miss something in a 2-hour practice and didn't acknowledge a guy at the end of the practice, I don't want that to be the reason that I lose a kid on the team. So, I mean, 2 thoughts on that. One, call it when I see it, so that way I don't forget. And then now I'm reinforcing a positive behavior. They feel acknowledged, even if they don't remember. And 2, I always have a notebook. And this is from Coach Ryan Wellner, Notre Dame's defensive coordinator for lacrosse team. He always has a notebook. So if there's one note, or I give a theme, again, child development theme at the beginning of each practice that's anchored in social emotional learning. So that's self-awareness, social awareness, relationship building skills, self-management. I just make a note. If somebody did something that was in line with my message, then I bookend the end of practice with that. Between the whole practice, if somebody does something awesome, reinforce it no matter what it is. But if it's in line with my beginning huddle message, then call them out for it. Give them that praise. So, I mean, a lot there, but at the same time, it's all within the theme. If you see something, say something within the positive realm. In the Texas football culture, it's do your job. That's what you're supposed to do. Why am I going to acknowledge that? I yell at you if you don't do anything right. So it's just this they're scared of positively reinforcing great behaviors, and that creates maybe hard workers, but it creates shame-based hard workers versus internally confident dudes that are willing to run through a wall for you and their team.
Amen, brother. Amen. I'm always amazed at how, something I've brought up over the last, couple years, it's become so much more evident to me, to your point of what happens is, let's just say hypothetically, right? You're in a scenario where, hey, you've got somebody super talented at something, but they have a boss that's just like all over them all the time, right? And they just give it to, or a coach, right? Just all over them all the time. Just never showing them any love, right? The old tough love, right? Always tough on you, but never any love. So what happens to that player? They'll execute, they'll do their thing, and maybe they are legit. So they're still professional and they'll show up and they'll do their thing. But what you've risked and what you've lost that you don't see is, wow, if you gave them some love, if you made them feel valued, important, you have no idea how you could have opened up a whole nother portal of energy that they would have poured out to you and you would have had even greater success. The irony of that, because to your point, like, I'm shocked at how much the transactional attitude misses the point of that in their process, of where you can see somebody has something, but then the way you treat them, and you don't realize, wow, if I just gave them a little bit of humanity, just a little bit of that to them, they could give me so much more, because that's at the end of the day, you want to have success. So it's fascinating to me when you see these, to your point, that's what I love so much about your philosophy, is like this transactional aspect in today's 2026, that it's still a thing, is incredible to me, because it's still very much alive. Like, as much as people talk about connection and mindset and caring, it's still, once you get, there's something inside that once the competitor comes out and we go there, that's it. It's about outcome, points, scores, making plays, and it doesn't matter. You are a number. You are still a number. When we go into that mode, you are still a number. And it's a human quality, right, that we're working to get over. But it's amazing to me how that part right there, that you developed that and you've seen in your culture, but how many people struggle to understand, show some love. Again, right? Like Dr. Yeager's work, right? High standard and high love. Like, I'm still going to hold you to a high standard. Like, that's going to be the reality, but I'm also going to give you a ton of love. And that's what I love so much about your process.
Yeah, and I still go through it today and communicate to the lacrosse players. This is an open path of communication. If I say something that doesn't make sense, you got to let me know. I can't just have you go out and execute it.
Yeah.
Or intent is everything. And you know this in skill development, in sport, in learning. So now if a guy's going through the motions, I need to help him understand the why. So then I get them to put forth the effort with a lot of stuff. So now it's aiming to, confront is not the right word, but if I try to confront them, if they're not putting in the intensities that's intended with this drill. There's a time for learning. There's a time for speed. If the time for speed is now and you're not going through it, I gotta learn why. And more often than not, they had a brain fog, and that's okay too. But guess what else is a skill that's going to lead us to success this season is focus. So now I'm going to recall you and help you focus on this specific drill. But if it's an attitude thing where it's like, man, this is stupid. That's silly. I don't really get it. Dude, a lot of the agility, it's a part of the sport, but I just try to break it down and teach it and focus on this one thing, so they may not see the big picture and connection to the sport. It doesn't mean it's stupid. I still need you to focus on this one step because it's important. So now I just need to do a better job of, hey, this is where this step shows up in your shooting, in your dodging, in your play. So I can certainly do a better job than that. But that's the challenge, and I love the challenge of coaching bandwidth across a whole team. I got 50 dudes. One, this is their first time. If I waste breath on why and explaining why, they just lost 3 reps. But here's my other guys that are been playing their whole lives or been playing for a number of years. They're really good, but they need the why. So what do? Do I value reps? Do I value helping them understand? But that's the beauty of coaching bandwidth. I need to spread it across. I'm going to get them moving and then find my guys that need the why and give it to them. Or just read the body language of what's going on and then help get that buy-in. I always have a purpose and a reason for everything that we do in practice. I just got to know who needs it and who's going to just value more from more reps.
Love it. Yeah. It's the, and so perfectly said, the intent. You've got to have that plan or that North Star, that idea in your mind of like, this is the intent. This is what I want to accomplish. Doesn't mean that, sports is uncertain, right? We have no idea what's about to happen. But because I know, hey, this is non-negotiable, this is a principle of mine, it can help you come back to anchor when you notice and observe something that goes against it. I think that's what a lot of people miss out on, right? And from a leadership standpoint, let's go back to, you talk about your first coaching experience, right? As you kind of grew through that, and your teammate, I tore his rotator cuff doing a handstand drill, right? That had to be brutal, right? Going through that. So like when you realized seeing that emotionally, right? And seeing what happened, when you realized that your approach, again, however well-intentioned, because I think this is where, what you're bringing up is really important, of intentionality and how much coaches need to realize that part of it. When you realize that your approach, however well-intentioned, caused that harm, what did that do to your confidence and then sense of responsibility as a coach? Like, how did that transform you personally?
Well, the responsibility is the key word. And I jokingly said, Catholic guilt before, and I joke in presentations, I'm a recovering Catholic. So that understanding there's guilt and then there's shame. So guilt is a feeling, shame is a belief. Now, I felt guilty for my decision for my team and then not putting them in the best position to succeed. I had them kick up into a handstand versus maybe doing a walk up into that handstand. A walk up would have put them at the limit of their current upper body strength and ability. And versus a kick up is not as controlled and you're flying up there. So then it's thinking, okay, how can I now reframe the decisions that I made because I'm not stuck in the belief that I'm a bad coach. There's guilt. I feel bad. I need to redirect. So, and this is a filter that I picked up from one of my great mentors. His name is Rafael Ruiz. So it's 3 P's. It's a filter. And this is where I said I always have a why and a purpose for everything I give at practice. This filter comes from Raf, and it always leads with that purpose. What in this drill do I want to accomplish? Then the next phase is practical. Okay, I have dream scenario. Here's what I need to accomplish. What's the practicality? What equipment, what space, what time do I have to accomplish that? Now, we were a Division III school with a fitness center and no weight room. My purpose was upper body strength, practical. We have this giant concrete wall on our back field that's used for wall ball. Well, we're going to kick up against it. Okay. The last P is the most important. It's prudent. Did it accomplish the purpose? Did my actions accomplish the purpose? Now, prudent, no, because I injured a dude. He tore his rotator cuff. Did we get, I had my purpose. I had my limitations within the practical confines, but then I didn't accomplish the goal. I didn't accomplish the purpose. Okay, I need to rethink on how I'm executing this particular drill. So that can be applied to every single movement that I would program on a training workout card. Every single drill within practice. Prudent. Did it translate into the 6-on-6? Did it translate into the game? No. Okay, well, my purpose was, footwork or 2-man game or passing, whatever it may be. And it didn't translate into where we need it the most, the game, winning. Okay, well, I got to rethink how I'm teaching that. So this leads to another model. So 3 Ps, that's from Ruiz. This model, this is now a more of a teaching mode. And I differentiate teaching and coaching. Teaching is going to be me breaking down every single element, and I have a deep understanding of what it is, so that way I can hand it off to my team for them to apply it. Now, coaching is fixing the one thing that they messed up, give them a one direction to take into the next rep, cue, play, whatever it may be. 2 different things. So I need to be well-versed in teaching. So when I teach a new drill, I go through this model. It's define, model, shape, and then reinforce. Define, it's me teaching, saying, here's our expectations. Here's the setup of where I would need you to start, and here's how you're going to finish. Model would be me running that drill. If it involves 3 players, I get 3 players out there that know what they're doing, and we walk through exactly what we're going to do. That's me modeling it. If I'm not skilled enough or I can't do that exercise or that, baseball swing, I'm going to show them Ken Griffey Jr.'s thing. This is a beautiful swing. So if I can't personally do it, I find a video model for them to do it. Bounding is one of the most difficult things to teach an athlete. I can't do it. I find an athlete that can do it and have them be the example. All the other simple sprints and skips, I can do myself. So that'd be an example. And now shape, that's when we set them free. So we've set them up, we've modeled the execution, and now just set them free to navigate their brain, mind, muscle connections, the bodies with the reps. And now guess what I'm doing as a coach? Shaping, giving them one thing to take into the next rep. More often than not, from my experience, what we can fix in the setup is going to triage and affect a lot of the execution mistakes. I could write a dissertation on the squat execution, but I'm just going to find one thing to fix in the setup that could potentially fix, 5 of the things that I saw wrong. Same with shooting. So now reinforce if it was great, attitude, effort, or execution, reinforce it. Great work on there. Great setup. So it could, if they are not gifted yet, if you put me on the ice, there's going to be very few things that you can reinforce for my movement, but you can reinforce my confidence or my swagger, my courage for stepping out there. That'd be, okay, you're beginning, way to step up today, way to try, way to focus, etc. Now, as they gain confidence and competence, then I can reinforce excellent movement tips. So it's define, model, shape, and reinforce. That's all the drills. That's also going to be within film room, because film room presents this opportunity to define, model. I can model what this play was supposed to look like on this whiteboard, and I can show them what it's not supposed to look like in a learning mode, not a shaming mode. Then we'll shape it during practice, etc. So just those 2 models I lean a lot into, the define, model, shape, and reinforce. I got the opportunity to speak in 2000 before the world shut down at a rugby clinic in Iowa. There was 5 speakers, maybe 6 attendees. It was one of those conferences. I don't know if you had the opportunity to speak at these, but I say yes to everything when it comes to speaking. So then
Nice.
I was the strength and conditioning person they brought in, and they brought in an old basketball coach. And I want to get him on my podcast. He's still alive, and he broke it down as the laws of motor learning. Define, model, shape, and reinforce, and how he used it in writing his basketball practice plans. Now, it's not this notebook, but I took so many notes. I was the most engaged person in that entire room. And it was just amazing how he would weave in stories of these players and give their full names and their family and their background. It's like just the depth of the story to help build this model and lessons that he was teaching. I was like, this man's a national treasure. So just that simple breakdown, all these connections and light bulbs going off to, because I have to travel a lot and teach for weightlifting and team culture. It was just like, this is character development. As a coach, I wanted to define, model, especially, and shape any character and reinforce it. This is movement, no matter the sport we're talking about. So all these connections started to go off. So I credit that. And then I try to Google and make these connections between the laws of motor learning and define, model, shape, and reinforce. There's nothing out there. It's just an old man's experience that I found so rich and valuable that I all aim to build the research and connect to it. But man, those 2 models have taken me farther in the last, my coaching and teaching career than anything else I've learned.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, man, because that's one of the biggest reasons, right, of why I even started this podcast, was that being able to have conversations like this where, a lot of the, coming from the background of the hockey crew, right, you're rarely talking to teachers of the game, right? You're talking to, all right, I've got experience and I'm going to go out there. And again, that transactional, and there's definitely more that are realizing the connection part. But the fact that you have in your mind to be able to collect, right, and model and create a systemic flow in your mind to make and categorize all these different things, right? Like, I think that's the part where coaches have to understand is such an important part of their process when you're building your mindset is, do you have a methodical way to hold so much information under an umbrella of a recipe? That's basically what it is. It's a recipe of, here's ideas to follow. They're going to connect the dots to keep you in line with your principles. So when all the emotion, all the craziness goes, you fall back on something that's like, okay, I have a philosophy behind it. So super important. Love the context of that. It was unreal. It's so interesting hearing how you are as a human being, right? From that standpoint, which is amazing, right? To go through. And so the thing that's obvious, right, is that you're such a hard worker, right? To you, it's like, I'm going, like, clearly, right? Just by the amount of time you're putting in, you go, you work, you're going to figure it out. You have that mindset, right? And so going through that experience and then other ones, right, of like, from what I had researched, right, is that experience of going through in the gym and then realizing that just work harder mindset. What was the moment where you realized that I need help? I don't know what I don't know. And it's time to go down that rabbit hole, because this is another part with leadership is I think a lot of times, and I've heard and seen some wild stuff of when you ask a leader, hey, do you work on yourself? And it's amazing how many times I go, well, I went to a coaching workshop. I did that once. And it's like, that's not working on yourself. So, talk about what that felt like to you at the time when you took that leap and you realized, hey, I got to go to work on myself and really understand the models, and get some mentorship. Talk about what that felt like for you at the time and when you had the realization and then when you went for it.
Yeah, it's multiple stages. So the I took a break coaching lacrosse, and that, you know, you pursue certain things in your career and pass in your career, and then I unfortunately made the mistake to follow the money. So then was still coaching and presenting, and I was building coaching models and methodologies and traveling the world and teaching, but I wasn't applying. I wasn't in the trenches within this stuff. It became a position where I would pontificate or tell stories that were 10 years old to help make these points. And then the modern athletes have changed up to that point. So there was a 2016 to December of 2019, I was not involved with coaching sport, whether it's college or high school level. And I mean, I knew there was a gap in how I was being led and communicated. Man, talk about shame. The motivator from leadership at that phase, it was three things. It was money, food, and shame. Very public methodology announced that 1, 2, 3 things. And there was always a reason to move the goalpost that you didn't hit it and avoid giving you one of those three things, which was money. So I started to listen to what the external voice was telling me about myself again. I go back to the high school football where one of my conversations with the coaches, and this, I chose to believe it. My amazing friends and community around me, I said, we did not choose to believe it. I did as a kid because I trusted so much in that coach. And the high school coach, he told me, you work hard in the field, you work hard in the weight room, you're just not any good. So where my friends felt it by the moves that the coaches made, I actually heard it from the coaches. So in 2016, I had that same sense where I was being told, you are this. And, if we look at paper, if we look at the business, if we, look what the external environment is telling you, it wasn't true. But I chose to believe it. So when I feel depressed and down, that's when I take the biggest shots. So I found the lacrosse team within my community, that again, another small town, Dripping Springs, Texas, and then just reached out to the coach. I mean, laid out my resume, and there's no way that they don't take the help for a couple $1,000, So got re-involved with them, and I brought my intensity, effort is assumed, this kind of attitude that I had to that team. It was not the right team. So that caused a lot of guys where I know how to strengthen condition, I know how to program a team, I know how to lead, but they weren't listening. They weren't building the buy-in and the connection. I was really pushing them to be in intensity. However, it wasn't clicking with them. They had a swagger, a confidence, and an amazing just connection that I had when I was a kid, and I saw it within them and was happy for them. But at the same time, I wanted to push and strive and get them to want it as much as I did for them. Not the right approach. And unfortunately, tragedy struck. Our team captain is one of the most amazing human beings and he's 16 years old and just a freak heart deal that was not, not caught. And he passed away in the summer, and man, that hit our team hard. And so I didn't have the toolkit to help lead these teenagers within that space. I could get them faster. I could get them stronger. I could, will them to be loud and lead, but that's not what they needed at that time. So, I mean, that hit our community hard and really started to, clear the fog of the environment that I was in and working in. So it's like, okay, what truly am I coaching lacrosse for? It was selfish at that time because I needed it as an escape and a sanctuary from work life. But now it became something greater. And who do I want these men to be 10 years down the line? Do I want them to be fast now and resent me later? Or do I want them to be fast now, understand why and how we work hard and have a great relationship with fitness, hard work, and then be amazing leaders in their own lives with their wives, their communities, etc., going on? So I then had to learn again more social, emotional leadership skills to step into this space, to be a supportive person versus just an intelligent coach, if you will. So that was a defining moment. So that 19 to 20, and the Taden, he passed away in the summer of 20. COVID took away that year. And then, then shortly thereafter, another turning point was 2022. I lost my truck blew up. I lost my girlfriend, and I was just going through it at work. It was like a sad country song. And it's like, all right, okay, we're back in this space. Let's take some big swings. And that's when I got an opportunity to work at a company called Kids Strong and then build out their coaching methodology and their certification. So it's a franchise that works with kids developmental from walking all the way to 11 years old. And I understood the physical part, but what blew my mind was just now really deep diving, and I don't have kids, but deep diving into the social emotional development of kids in the certain stages, especially from 4 to 7, and then 7 to 11, where we're gaining independence from parents, where they're now working on interdependence and relying on each other to be great teammates and great people. And then reflecting on all my coaching career all over all the high school age group, where I had college kids pushing back, conflict. And it's like, dude, I'm trying to help you. We're on the same team. But they were 16. And at this stage, I knew their families for so long coaching in the community that, okay, well, their parents had a violent divorce when they were 7 years old, or they moved here, or they're adopted, all sorts of different stuff within the community. And then there's instances where the kids, act out, or they act in, where they're beating themselves up. So just, okay, well, they missed this stage at 7, or this fission happened in their brain at this age. And I was like, I know a kid exactly like that. So all these light bulbs going off. And so that's why I anchor a lot of my education into that child development and just speak to it at the high school level, is because, these are real life problems. And in my mind, where parents are the first line of defense for a kid to enter into the real world to have success, coaches are the last line. We're the last line of defense that actually gives, a crap about them, that cares about them, that is willing in this safe environment that we have with them to tell them like it is, to work on this toolkit, but we send them out in the real world. Because professors don't care, bosses certainly don't care. So this is an opportunity for us to really work on this stuff before it becomes costly as they enter into their family lives. Dude, so it's combining life experiences, combining coaching experiences, and realizing that coaching is not just sets and reps and what can be found on a piece of paper. It's connecting with that person. Then how do we unlock that true human potential and then take them where they can't take themselves? So yeah, man, I needed to lead myself. I needed to gain these tools myself. So that way, if I identify a kid that doesn't have these tools, here's at least a starting process to put you in a position to fail 1,000 times until it clicks for you when it does matter the most, whether that's in a relationship, school, life, whatever it may be, man. So that's a lot to say. And I had done
Yeah.
a lot of deep diving and a lot of work, and a lot of my teachings now will be working hard to differentiate shame and guilt and get coaches away from using shame as a motivator, because if that kid starts to believe that story, becomes destructive in their lives.
Yeah. No, amen. Amen on so many levels. Because there's a lot of leaders and coaches that, listen, right? What would you recommend of non-negotiable of like, hey, here's just stuff that I know, going deep diving through child development, seeing the full spectrum of from when they're young, right? And that's 6, 7, there it is right there, all the way through, right? Till that 18, 19. It's going to come at some point.
Yep.
Until that college age, what do you recommend to a coach that's like, all right, I'm listening to this and hey, cool, I heard this insight, but what's the thing that you have to take responsibility for as a leader to learn about yourself so you can learn and implement this with others?
That's a great question. I would
A generalization. I know it's not
yeah.
there isn't one blanket answer, but what's like something that you've seen could be important to reflect on?
I would encourage them to reflect on patterns. What keeps happening? What is it consistent? And then where does your behavior, your attitude, your actions then lead that to happen? So an example that I've presented throughout this podcast is I was finding myself in environments where I wasn't being valued for my strengths and my capabilities. Why did that keep happening? That's the question that I have. So I'm comfortable and I thrive in that environment, unfortunately, but that puts a ceiling on who I am, my potential, the people I can reach, and my well-being. So it's going to be difficult, but I'm looking at my values, my environment, and then does my environment allow my values to thrive? Is it controlling my values? And then, this is where Coach Gav has been so valuable. He's a values person first, and then a book, workbook series that he recommended to me was the Fish is Not Sick, the Water is Dirty. That's all about environment. And I felt that analogy described me so well. So I would encourage coaches, leaders to look at patterns. What environments do you consistently find yourself in? And what actions led you into those environments? And why the hell do you feel so comfortable there?
Yeah. I love it. No, you nailed it, brother. And that beautiful. And I love how you were like, working through and trying to like find that, because you nailed it, right? It's as a leader, you can't, right? I remember old mentor, right? Brian Grass used to talk about this. You can't outgoal an unsuccessful mindset. He would always say, like, you can't. So it's like, I'm going to go this way. But the reality is, if the mindset of the culture, the environment, the values, the people that you're around, it won't work. And that's something that, to your point, wisdom that I've learned through the years, it just shows up again and again, and it shows you how true that actually is in how you build out. And so, building on that idea, right, of like from leadership and continue to kind of go on that, right? You talk about this idea of the coach scholar and somebody who learns deeply, right, and leads wisely on that side of, what was that internal shift for you when you move from I'm the guy who's going to figure it out to I'm the guy who asks and studies, right? What did that feel like for you? Because I think that can build upon what we just talked about from a leadership lens.
Well, it was painful because I didn't have those tools. I knew that was the right direction to go, but now I did not have the connection tools to then really lead the guys where I felt that they needed to go. And the interesting thing, when I started as a coach, I was coaching my teammates. I already had been through, 1,000 tough practices with them, drank 1,000 beers with them. We had a connection. We had a great relationship. Now I stepped into, and then traveling the world teaching a seminar for 2 days, I'm in an authority, I'm in an ethos strong position of this expert. So people buy in very quickly. So that was my, I guess, the false perception that I'm going to get these kids to follow me because I'm so smart and experienced as a coach. No. So seeing that gap of how do I reach these kids? Seeing the gap and being like, okay, well, where am I going to start? And then relate is the foundation. How do I relate to these kids right now? There's a generational gap. I can't quote Super Troopers anymore unless I would need to make myself laugh. They've never seen or heard of that movie. So, meow, what movie do I go with? I don't know. So I got to do some research. So it's, I find movies as the ultimate example. These guys are watching movies, no matter the age. I mean, they've grown up in the superhero age. So it's finding a way to connect with them, relate, and then go from there. Once I have this connection, now I can I also encourage them to teach me something. So now I've created this bridge that I can walk across as a teacher as well. Whatever that may be. If they play another sport, teach me about soccer. Teach me about basketball, what position. I know ball, but I pretend not to and help them lead me to a conclusion about that. I know nothing about hockey. So I don't know. That'd be a very easy one to relate and connect because they would teach me so much. So these are now the tools and the systems that I teach is like, okay, well, how do we connect and then lead the mental and emotional state of an individual? Well, if I can get to know 50 individuals, well, now I know how I can lead the mental and emotional state of a team. But if I'm just jumping into team, then I'm probably relying on what leads me, which is not going to lead the team. So it's starting with relate, getting to know them as individuals, and then you're in a position to lead that team. So, and then deep dive, and I'll shameless plug, I just built a whole online course for why they're not listening, making the connection with the modern athlete that goes through this and then connects all Jaeger's research and then social emotional learning, which is a framework used by elementary schools. And then I just have movement in there to help teach those lessons. Because one thing I'll tell you about high schoolers, you can't just talk at them. If we're moving, we're learning. So I can get them fatigued and then teach them something about life and leadership because they've been to an emotional ends with their conditioning. So I can't just talk at them and need to turn it into experiential learning for them to listen to me. And it's usually at the end of some form of failure within the conditioning or the strength realm. That's what I like.
Yeah, of course. I love that. And as a resource, I highly recommend definitely any coach check it out. I know that you're very, like meticulous and making sure you're getting the best research. So that's unreal. And we'll make sure through the podcast, we'll put that out there. But, one of the things that I find interesting that'd be cool to know about you is that, as we're wrapping up here is that, what's your relationship with pressure like now, right? Because it's obvious you've gone through these experiences and every coach deals with it. Like you said, kids changing, cultures changing, things of that nature. So what do you find your relationship with pressure is like now, right? How do you experience it in the moment? And what are the tools that you use personally to pause, think, and respond instead of reacting? What's the go-to for you?
Yeah, this is why I wanted sport back in my life so I could live in that pressure moment in the moment. So I feel incredibly comfortable in there. I feel like it's a warm coat that I put back on from the old playing days. And keep in mind the model of define, model, shape, and reinforce. I'm constantly telling these guys how to act and treat refs, or how to communicate under pressure, or when we give up a goal, defense comes together, how are we going to talk to each other? So this is my opportunity to then model it during the games and the competition. So it 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 feels great. I feel just at home in those environments. And then always at the forefront, I know it's high school sports. This does not matter. And I've told this in job interviews that have not worked out, but I still truly believe it, and I'm not going to give up on it, is that I care more about who your son is in 10 years than winning 10 games. That is at the forefront of my mind. No one's going to remember their JV record. Maybe they'll remember varsity moments where you upset this team or you won that game, but the record is going to fade over time. What doesn't is your connection and your love for your bros. So that is where I aim to focus, is still how we're treating each other in the highest moments of stress, how I'm communicating and modeling to communicate to refs. And then, I mean, the biggest one is now how I'm talking and being present to parents at the end of the game. Where many coaches want distance, I got to close that gap and create a strong relationship, especially at the JV level. They're gonna learn how to treat coach, how to treat refs, how to treat other parents. Because here's the thing about stands, and I imagine it's the same with hockey. There seems to be no filter. So if dad number one is just talking about, Timmy is always the fake name I throw out there, talking about Timmy out there. Well, Timmy's mom is probably sitting behind him and just listening to this buffoon bash his, the 16-year-old son. So I don't want that. If there's a coaching mistake, I'll own up to it and tell him, hey, here's my mind was. Here's where this went right in my previous experience. Here's where it went wrong. So also went wrong. I've had a lot of coaching interviews where and this is what I learned from Coach Cav. So what I stated in the interview, they asked me about conflict with parents. And the standard rule is a 24-hour rule, so we can all calm down and bring it back. So knowing that, but knowing what I would do, I gave what I would do. And here's the thing with job interviews for any coaches out there, I encourage you to just be yourself, because that's who you're going to be. And then they're going to hold you accountable for if you told some, perfect interview answer, which would be that 24-hour after conflict, and then I don't do that, that's a problem. So I want to meet conflict. Why? And Cab does a great job of this, talking about the car ride home. And I saw you were on a podcast, I think it was that title, or riding to the rink, something like that. But the Cav talks about having 2 car ride homes, one in your mind and one actually that happens. Now, for a coach, that is my biggest fear, because I've seen parents destroy programs because of their, and I call it fantastic lies about their kid. Reason it's called fantastic lies is because their club coach is writing these big checks and telling dad how great their kid is and he's going to go to Division I, and the kid is not at that level. So now when high school coach actually tells him the truth, oh, dad doesn't believe it. This high school coach doesn't know what he's talking about. And the great coach I worked with in my town, he got fired or run away from the program. Our whole coaching staff did, because one parent was not willing to accept that their son as a freshman was a backup on varsity because of the fantastic lies. So I've just seen it. So what I aim to do is right after the game, get to the parents and talk through it, because I fear that car ride home.
Brilliant.
How is that going to negatively affect our team throughout the season? If, dad keeps talking about Timmy's play, when does, Junior start to believe that about Timmy and not trust Timmy on the field? And then our whole team just erodes, unfortunately, because of some parent who's heated and them themselves lack the social emotional skills on how to communicate to their own child regarding sport and performance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's encourage confrontation and conflict, and help parents understand that it's just a game.
Yep. Beautiful. That's so powerful, and I commend you, man, for taking a step like that, because I don't think there's many coaches that are even willing to do that, to take that step of, I'm going to take the time right afterwards to ensure that that car ride home is legit and under control. So that's amazing that you take that step, and so powerful, man. Um, as we finish off here, one of the things that's been fascinating through your journey, right, is that sport was obviously your crucible as you're going through. Talk to us about, what did it teach you about the character and identity that books or school or none of the research ever could, right? Because you're so well versed in all that. You went, you did all this stuff. What's the thing that you learned, about yourself through this whole process, that it's like, all right, when it comes to my character and identity, I didn't learn this from anything other than experience.
Yeah, I will say this. So a big theme within captains and coaches, and this is from Jim Davis, Good Athlete Project, is that sports don't teach lessons. Coaches do. Captains and coaches do. So I mentioned value earlier, connection, one of the values. I got 3 core values, and then a lot that splinter off that and lead up. But leadership, connection, and then creativity. And sport presents infinite opportunities for all 3 of those. So it was discovery, but then to lead me to those values, and now just show up every day and just grateful that I get to go to practice to then live through each one of those 3 core values. So, man, I could tell you about a heartbreak. I could tell you about, friendships. I could tell you about lost friendships, conflict, fist fights. I joke about it now, and, we're at each other's weddings and telling the same stories. But, in college, we were fighting each other because of conflict and confrontation on the field. So, like, it's a controlled, contained environment for us to get reps and opportunities for everything that is going to happen in life when we're ready. The theme is, though, we have a mentor there to help guide us. And that's where I feel we're aligned, is the importance of the coach's responsibility to help guide and lead that, knowing that everyone's athletic career ends. Who are we building? Who are we building? Not what are we building, to then step out into life after sport and have a confidence and identity that they are a leader. Not their identity is, I'm a hockey player, then hockey ends. Who am I? No. You're a leader. People love you. You have an amazing ability to make connections, to do this or that. So that's why I put the emphasis on coaches teaching those lessons, not sport, is because I've had those transactional coaches. I've had those people that have been detrimental, and thank God that I had great communities around me to help remind me who I am versus listening to who they told me I was.
Amen, man. Nailed it. Well, we'll do this again, man. This was amazing to have you on, and just brilliant conversation. And yeah, Tex, thank you for going deep with us and for showing what it really looks like to evolve, right, as an athlete, and go through this process. From that early belief, right, that more isn't always better, to the humility that it took to rebuild, that clearly you showed, and now the wisdom that you're passing forward. Story is one that's definitely going to stick around. How can people find you? What's the best way for them to get in contact with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, easiest is social. So Instagram is just my last name, at McQuilkin, McQuilkin. And then the newsletter. So I'm living it. So every single week, just here's what I learned on the field this week. So then shoot that out in the newsletter. Head to newsletter.captainsandcoaches.com. And then for my course, Why They're Not Listening, which super fun course to lead. It's 90 minutes of video and then a ton of reading and research alongside that. That is listen.captainsandcoaches.com. Those are the best resources. And I mean, I'm easily accessible through the website or Instagram, and out there. So thank you for the opportunity, man. And tuning into your podcast, there's always something to learn. And I like how you're able to add in your experience, to combine your experience, the experience of the guests, and then really turn it into a learning environment. So appreciate that about your interview style and show. And man, as I said to start the show, looking forward to building professional connection with you, and then look forward to the next mastermind where we get to hang out.
Yeah, amen to that. Beautiful, man. Beautiful. And appreciate you too, brother. This is awesome. So, and for everyone listening, if something in this conversation hit home, made you rethink your approach, or if you know a coach or athlete who needs to hear this, please send it their way. And as always, keep using the game to evolve as an athlete and play for that feeling.